Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Extraordinary Family Life Podcasts, where we are trying to give you the tools, the training, the resources, some inspiration, some laughs, and some good things to help you live an extraordinary life. Because you guys, ordinary is just ordinary and boring and blah. Who wants to be ordinary? What could be worse than an ordinary life? To me, that ordinary is like, it's another word for mediocre, and mediocre is a word that drives me to be extraordinary. So let's choose to live extraordinary lives. Today, my friends, yes, Rachel's here again. We're going to talk about money and marriage. Because those are the top two things, and have been for decades, the top two things that couples struggle with. And they're tough, right?
Well, no, not top two things.
Oh, money's the top. One of the top two. Sex is the other one. So
one of the top two things people struggle with in marriage.
Right. So money's not the top two. So money's number one and money's number two. No, but sex and marriage, or sex and money, are the top two struggles
in marriage.
In marriage. And things people fight about, they in surveys and things like that, people we fight about that all the time, and I'm sure you've had some struggles with it.
And we received a specific question about this that asked some really great questions, hard questions, and so we are going to answer these questions and discuss this topic
and try to just share. We'll share what works for us. Every couple is going to have to find the thing that works for them. So we got to start that way. Like, you're going to have to figure this out, and it's going to be unique for your marriage. But dadgummit, don't just tolerate an unhealthy relationship with money inside of your marriage.
Don't just tolerate things that aren't working. And
right.
if there are issues around this, maybe some of these issues we're going to bring up today, that's a sign that things are not working for you with your money in your marriage, and you should make some changes.
And what's exciting is you can. So that is the number one thing I want to share right now is, like, you got this. You can totally do this. You can make transformations. We've seen it happen, even if it's been chronic for you and your spouse, and
for
it's
years.
just problems like, it's always been like that, he's always been like that, she's always been like this. You can make some changes. We're going to try to give you some tools today. So I think the first place we need to start is that it always starts with you as the individual. And what's interesting with money is one of those things that we have a relationship with, and maybe you've thought about this before. Keep going.
Well, we have relationships. We've talked about this before. We have relationships with food. We have relationships with money. We have relationships with, lots of different aspects of our life. And that sounds weird. Expound on that.
Well, because, you're like, it's an inanimate object. What do you mean have a
Or sometimes
a
it's an abstraction.
Right. But we all grow up with and then acquire through experiences or things we've heard or been told. We get a relationship with money. And so you are in a relationship with money. And then as a couple, you kind of join together and have a relationship with money as a family. And so you have to first examine your personal relationship with money. What does money mean to you? And for me, I had to go through a total transformation with money because it was so charged, it was so emotional, it was so intense. I'm sure some of you listening can relate to this. Like, whenever you think about money, it might make you sick to your stomach, or you might feel mean about it, or scarce about it, or
angry about
it. It might just trigger you.
Well, so I'm going to say, because one of the questions, this was a question that was a lot of questions in an email, and it says, what are some good basic beliefs about money and marriage? And I think what Greg is talking about is where it starts. Like, not just basic beliefs about money in marriage, but about your relationship with money in general. Like, what are the good basic beliefs about money? And as Greg said, he's had to go through a transformation with this. I've had to do the same. I remember when I was in my teens, a young adult, and I got a flat tire on my car, and I literally was so angry and upset about it. Not because I got a flat tire, but because I knew it would cost money to fix it. And I literally remember standing there in the dark, crying, saying, I hate money. Okay, that's not a good, healthy belief about money because money is a tool. So Greg and I have gone on this journey individually, but as a couple.
And we brought our little money issues into our marriage, you guys. I had an experience the other day. I remembered something that had happened because it stood out. I remember one time when we were newly married and money was so tight, we had lost a $10 bill. Mm-hmm. And I was physically sick and upset, like, because we'd lost $10. $10, you guys. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. Like, you maybe have been in a tight spot before.
And some of you probably don't relate. You may have grown up with great mindsets around money because of your parents or different things, and that's awesome. So kudos for you.
Yeah, good for you.
That's awesome. But for those of us who struggle with that, this is something that directly impacts your marriage. Now, it could be in your marriage, one of you has a great mindset about money and the other has a scarcity mindset about money and hates it and stresses about it and, worries about losing the $10 bill. That obviously is going to cause problems in your marriage.
Other conditions might be just habit. Maybe you have a decent mindset, both of you, but one of you or both of you have poor spending habits or investing habits or budgeting habits. It might just be tools or strategies, something you got to kind of get dialed in so that you have this working agreement and system. You guys know how much we love systems, but you have this working system that helps you do it. Now, before we dive in here, I want to make this clear. This doesn't have to do so much with the amount of money you have. We know people who are extremely wealthy, millions and millions and millions of dollars in their bank account, and still have scarcity mindsets around money. Still have a negative...
Still worry about it, still fight about it, still...
Yeah, it's still an issue. And so some people think like, well, the only reason I have this issue is because we have so little.
Well, on the other side of that coin, because we've traveled so much, we also know people who have very little in the amounts of money and material things they have, and yet have an abundant, generous, healthy mindset about money. So it's not the amount of money in your bank that ultimately makes a difference. It's how you think about money and the amount you have in your bank that makes a difference. So first of all, the first step to improving your relationship with money in your marriage
is to make lots of it, lots and lots of money.
No, that's not the first step. That can be a step. That's fine. The first step is to change your mindset and your relationship with money as an individual. So get books about it. Get books about abundance and money and metaphysics if you want, right? Because we could get metaphysical about it. But study and learn about it individually, and then have those conversations with your spouse.
But I love what Rachel's saying here. It has to start with you. So if you have money issues or you want to change the money relationship for yourself and in your marriage, start with you. Start studying, devouring it. Learn to get a really healthy mindset and framework around money. And start with you. Educate yourself. It's like Rachel and I say this with everything. Anything that has to be a part of your life, make sure you educate yourself on that thing. Mm-hmm. And like it or not, money is a part of our world. And we're operating with currencies and money. It's right. The way
like
things
it or
operate
not,
in the economy.
But I say you should learn to like it.
Yep.
Because it is, I don't want to say a necessary evil because I don't think money is evil. But it is a necessary thing in this world, so you should learn to like it. One of the things that changed my mindset about it was when I learned that money is neutral.
Yes.
It's just neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And it's like a tool. It's like a hammer. You can use a hammer for building things or you can use a hammer for destroying things. So it's how you view money personally and how you use it that determines whether it's good or bad, not the tool itself. Okay, so another question involved with this was, well, what if one of the spouses is the main provider and the other one stays home and, homeschools the kids or takes care of the kids. And so the person who's earning the money feels like they're responsible. They're in charge of it, and they get to decide how the money is spent.
It almost is this kind of twisted sense of control. And if that were the case, I'm going to jump in here as the kind of as the man side. Let's say, and this was true for us for a long time, especially when we had lots of littles, and she had a 24-hour job. It wasn't full-time, but It was 24 hours. So she had a 24-hour job raising the kids, and I went to work to pay for the kids. But let's flip this. If I were to stop as a good husband, if I were to stop and say, and just kind of flip the role for a second, it might seem to her in some instances that she feels a little bit helpless because she is not earning money on her own. She's not bringing in. So she has this dependence. And it would be so messed up for me to limit her in that, because she's choosing to be busy with our home and our family and our children. Think about that. Flip that on the side and be like, how messed up would that be as the husband to be like, look, I earn the money, it's mine.
I do all the work.
And I go to work, woman, right? But think she's choosing in this family dynamic, she's choosing to not bring in money, so I have to go out of my way to make sure she has the money she wants and needs.
Well, and to take this idea even further, it's not that one person's working and the other person's not working. We're both working. We're both doing work that brings value to the family unit and to the home. Now, unfortunately, because we still live in this society, one of those types of work brings in money, but the other doesn't. But I think it's very helpful. I think this is helpful just for a woman's own sense of worth and contribution, whatever. Like, it's a good exercise to go through if this is something you struggle with. Sit down and write out all the things you do and all the work you do, and then do some research on the cost of hiring that out. Now that's something you could take to your husband too, and be like, hey, if you were to hire someone to cook for you and to clean up your house and to take care of your children, say whatever, I'm dead, we get divorced, you now have to hire someone to do these things because you can't work and do them as well. This is how much it would cost you.
Where is this going here? You're like, hey buddy, pay up. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. Pay up. Look how expensive I am.
But sometimes that needs to be said.
I totally agree.
We're going to get into this. Like, sometimes in a marriage, these things need to be said. So if it's at that point in your marriage and life where your value is not being appreciated sufficiently and it doesn't have a monetary value, add a monetary value to it.
Yes, because it has it in a way.
It does have a monetary value. If you were to hire someone to do the work you do in the house, because if you're not doing it, someone else has to do it. So it's either taking away from the work of the other spouse, or the work of the other spouse is going to pay for those things to be done. So it does have a monetary value. And so you need to add that up and say, yeah, this is the value I bring to the marriage. And maybe you do say, you should at least give me this much in a budget every month to spend on the things I need to run the house.
Wow. You guys, the things Rachel does in our family is worth a fortune.
It is worth a fortune.
It is legitimately worth a fortune. And it would be very messed up of me as a husband, and I'm going to throw this out here, fellas. Like, if you somehow think what you do is more important, and you have this sense of competition in your marriage, it's going to be detrimental and totally misplaced. And I'll actually take this opportunity right now to say something. I want to drop the hammer here. If you do any kind of bullying in your marriage, in my mind, any bullying disqualifies you as a man. Not okay. Like, there is no place for any kind of bullying, any kind of authoritarianism or totalitarianism or any kind of tyranny in your home or your marriage. And if you're doing that, ooh, you and I need to have a talk out behind the whooping shed. No, I'm not going to threaten you. But threaten yourself, man. Stop. It's not okay. It disqualifies you as a man if you're kind of bullying and pushing around your spouse or your wife in any way, and it's particularly in money.
So, it's like, does the spouse that brings in the money have more of a say in how the money is spent? No, absolutely not. Especially if, which this is the irony, especially if the money being spent is for the household and the family, which generally that's the case. Who is the one that's actually in charge of the household and the family? Usually the spouse that's home.
But I earned it. I'm going to play this role here because I can see the thinking. I bust my butt. I go to this job and I don't even like my job.
Life.
I'm trading my life for money. You can't just go spend it.
And I get that. That's a legitimate concern for the spouse who is giving their life to earning the money. And yet, that doesn't mean they have all the say. Now, there's other issues that could be involved here, especially if the spouse doesn't like their job, they hate what they're doing, they're miserable. That's a whole nother issue. Like, you need some life coaching. You need to figure out how to do work you actually enjoy.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it ties into and it comes back to this scarcity thinking about money. Like, well, this is the only way I can get money and this is the only source and it's doing work I hate. All of that is directly tied into scarcity thinking.
Right. So if I have some kind of money issue with Rachel spending money, I've got to not look at her. And we'll address bad habits that spouses might have. Because if she's reckless with money and just blowing money on whatever, and she comes home with this ridiculous doodads, I was like, really? I had to trade an hour of my life for that? Really? Or she's blown on whatever. I get that, right? But aside from that, I'm not going to, any issue I have with her, I'm not going to direct at her. I'm going to first look at myself. Like Rachel was just saying, this is key, fellas, and for all of us. If I feel trapped or stuck or limited or miserable
or unfulfilled,
that's on me.
Right.
If I feel like I can't earn more money, that's on me. That is a fixed mindset that I have to change. So you are not stuck.
So her spending money, especially if she's spending money on homeschooling the kids or running the house, that's not his problem. The money needs to be spent because you hate your job doesn't mean the family should suffer financially, mentally, emotionally, all of those things.
If I personally am limited in my own skill set, my own earning ability, or I'm playing the victim, or I'm choosing to stay in a career I don't want to stay in because maybe I'm afraid, maybe I just want to stay with the comfort. You see all these issues, or maybe I have scarcity problems, and I'm portraying that now. And again, this is just basic psychology, but it's so profound. I'm portraying my own issues and my own insecurities, my own frustrations. I'm actually putting it on somebody else and saying, well, you're making me frustrated about this. You're causing this problem by spending money, when the reality is I got to own that and say, would that bother me if I were earning more and doing work I love and leveling up myself?
The question you always love to ask people, your coaching clients, is, would this be a problem if you were 10 times more competent in earning money or in managing money or in whatever it is? If your capability and competencies were 10 times better, yeah, it wouldn't be an issue then. So the problem is not the money, and the problem is not the spouse spending the money. The problem is the competency.
and we have to own it, right? And so lovingly, we're going to say that, hey, the problem's you. And that question just nails it on this. If you are 10 times better at earning money and doing it in the things you love and adding value to the marketplace, would you be fretting over the reams of paper your kids go through because they love drawing? And
it happens at our house.
They do one teeny little drawing in the corner of a full sheet of paper, and they're like, I already drew on that one. You're like, no! Right? Would it be an issue? Right? And so we have to we have to look, and again, we're being straight here, but lovingly also. And I help people do it all the time, and I can help you develop the skill set, and I can help you develop the mindset, and I can help you get out. I get it, fellas. I've felt trapped and stuck before. I can speak this way because I have felt the pain big time. I've been in that spot where I was hurting so much, and I felt stuck. I felt limited in how much I could earn, and I hated what I was doing. And so for her to spend something on
$10
money on something I didn't think was important, oh man, that was but the problem was me, fellas. The problem was me. And that's why we got to make this shift.
So, because the reality is, like, the point of earning money is not just to have money. Like, money on its own, it's essentially an idea, right? Especially our little numbers in the bank that aren't backed by anything real. That's a whole nother topic. But it's basically this idea. So money in and of itself is really of little value. You can't eat it. You can't sleep on it. You can't, it's what we do with the money. It's a tool. It's using it as a tool for resources, for experiences, for growth, for development. That is the greatest use of our money, is to use it to invest in the growth and development of ourselves and our family. That to me is the whole reason we earn money. Like, if it's not for that, it's for nothing.
It is a tool to be traded for growth and experiences and good things. So let me lean into that a little bit. Some of you are misers, and you have, we're going to go with this metaphor of tools. You have a shed packed full of tools that you never use.
You're like, no, you can't use those tools.
Like, those are they're
you
just,
can't build
just
a
sitting
bookshelf.
there, right? And so you
or a bed.
You hold on to it, you save and save, and we're all about saving. Saving's fantastic. In fact, somebody one time said that if you can't save, greatness is not in you. Like, wow, you've got to save. And then others are just spenders. You're just blowing all your money. You're using those tools for frothy, frivolous stuff, and you're not getting much value out of it. You're entertaining yourselves to death.
And you're becoming like hoarders and living in a...
So you have all kinds of stuff and things and garbage and all this, and yet you're not trading it for real experiences, meaningful stuff.
Well, and I want to point out, like, that's the other extreme, because there's people that are the misers, and then there's the people that are the spenders, and maybe there's one of each in your marriage, right? So we're not saying that just spending is also the way to fulfillment and growth and development. That's not true either, because you can go too far where it becomes kind of a buffer to real growth and development. You're just using it to, like, distract yourself or entertain yourself because you don't want to face the hard issues. That's the other extreme of this issue of money.
And that's pretty common. There's a lot of people who are addicted to spending. Have you guys ever done that? Have you ever
just for the sake of spending?
Like, you just feel like, I just need to go buy something. And we're addicted to shopping, to getting something new, to spending them, to buying something. Some of us hop on Amazon, we buy something just because we just have this, like, almost get your fix of spending or buying.
But that's very different than having a specific need that you're trying to fulfill, of a specific frustration you're trying to resolve. It's okay to use money for all of those things. It's okay to make your life easier and more interesting and more fulfilling by using money, right? And that includes simple things like computers for doing schoolwork or work, or supplies, resources, classes for you, for your children.
Books.
All of those things are
more
great
books.
For
and more books.
Exactly. Lots of books around here. So again, we're ultimately trying to find this balance, and included in this balance is not one spouse deciding for the other spouse what brings them meaning, fulfillment, and is worthy of spending money on.
Ooh.
That's not correct either.
If step one is to be introspective and work on your own understanding and relationship with money and rewrite the meaning you've given to money, then step two, I would say, is sit down with your spouse and come to some kind of agreement on what you value for your family, for your life.
Well, I'm going to change the wording there. Not necessarily an agreement, but an understanding, because there could be two different views.
Disagreement, yes.
There could be a disagreement.
Yes.
Disagreement in what each spouse believes is valuable, but to understand each other and where you're at.
And that's been so important in our marriage. So this is actually really relevant, because you're right. We haven't come to an agreement. We've come to an understanding.
Yes. Greg likes to spend money on gear. I don't get it. You already have 3 backpacks for backpacking. And he's like, but they're all
kinds
different.
Of backpacks.
For different purposes. Okay.
So I spend a lot of money on gear.
Because he likes adventures and he likes having the right gear, and he says you can't bring a shovel to a tractor fight and
right.
Things like that. So okay,
I'll spend money
gear.
on that and on things that I find valuable, and she just looks at me and like, I don't get you. Why do you do that? And to me it means the world.
And then I'm in the kitchen and I'm like, well, I need this utensil for this, and I need this tool for this, and I need this for this. Like, there's a different tool for all the different things.
You can use a butter knife for all of those things.
Like, no, you can't.
Or she'll often find resources for home education, right? And things, and I'm like, really? Really? And I've stopped questioning. I'm sort of like, okay, if you got your domain, babe, you got your space. I don't necessarily agree, but you're leading out over there, and I'm okay with that. Go for it.
Because I've done the research, and I'm looking for the insights for each child and what they need and what's going to work and if this is going to fill that gap. And so, yeah, he trusts me in that I'm competent enough to make a wise decision. Now, if your spouse doesn't think you're competent enough, that's a whole nother issue that needs to be dealt aside from or along with the money thing. If you've proven in the past that you're not totally competent, okay, then you need to improve your competency, right?
You have to rebuild that entire thing. So you and this comes up in coaching sessions sometimes. It comes up often where one of the spouses genuinely has not developed the skill of managing money and using money well. And if that's you or your spouse, that has to be remedied. It's got to be fixed. You can't just blow money. You can't just mismanage it, or where did it go? And you have no tracking system. You have no idea, or maybe you just haven't developed the discipline to not buy everything that's on sale just because it's on sale.
And you're saving money by buying it on sale.
Or you go to Costco and you're like, I'm only going for one thing.
Right.
And you come out $1,000 later.
Right.
No, they had this great deal and there was a guy doing a presentation. I had to get it. Right? If you have struggles, then those need to be addressed. So we're not dismissing that. It needs to be addressed. And honestly, get to a place where you can have that honest conversation where if it were me and Rachel, we would sit down and say, babe, where do you think I need to be better with money? And then I'd say, maybe can I share some things where I think you could work on money? And maybe you approach it even better than that, the wording, but you see what I'm saying? We have to be able to have this dialogue and this understanding. And if there's been issues and finally she's able to say to me, Greg, you haven't done very well at this XYZ aspect of money, okay, I get it. Now I know what I can work on to help resolve the issue.
Well, and another thing that you have talked to your coaching clients about is having a budget for the one spouse. If there is a spouse that won't change, or this is an ongoing issue, and there's a non-income earning spouse that would like freedom to spend some money on their own, because again, they're still bringing value to the family unit. So that value should have a monetary value.
And because of the dynamics, that spouse may not have the ability just to have spending money to spend on whatever they want.
Right. That should be okay too.
Rachel needs to have money So let's say if I'm on the only one earning money, she needs to have an account
Which
that
is not
she
true.
can. She earns the money.
So
then let's flip this. I need to have a spending account. I can buy whatever I want.
Actually, that's
more
funny
shoes.
that's
more
funny
bags.
because that's actually probably been more of the case. Because even when Greg only earned the money, I've always been the one in charge of the finances, just because I like it. I like spreadsheets. I like numbers. I like doing all that kind of stuff. So I've always paid the bills and all that. And there's been times where you've been like, can I just have some money I can just spend on whatever I want? And I'm like, sure, babe, you can.
That's true. Because our dynamics for so long was I was working and she managed everything. She pays the bills. You guys, I will embarrassingly admit here, I don't even know how to log into our bank accounts. Like, she takes care of all that. And that's been our agreement from the getting. She loves that. She loves the details. I'm like, babe, I'll just put money in the accounts. You go. And then there's literally been times like, can I just buy something?
I'm like, no, that's not in the budget.
Or
right now.
what's been crazy is I had no way to buy something for her as a surprise gift. 'Cause I'm like,
Without me knowing.
I have zero access to anything without her knowing exactly what I just did. She's like, what this? Nothing. Stop asking.
So now I think you do have your own little
I
accounts,
had to.
Your own little secret account.
Thank you, all these new little fancy apps that are coming up where you can hide money away. I get to buy stuff for her now, and I can surprise her.
But going back to what I was saying with your coaching clients, that sometimes it's helpful to just set up an account for your spouse and be like, okay, here, this is your money to do whatever you want with. Maybe that includes, you can decide if that includes stuff for the house, stuff for the kids, and then stuff for themselves. If they want to go out and they see some shoes on sale, like, they can buy the shoes without it being a big deal. That right there, first of all, it portrays a trust in your spouse that you don't think they're completely idiotic and incompetent, right? And it gives them a sense of freedom and individuality that they're allowed to have. They're not your little minion or your little, like, I don't know, whatever.
And again, if you have, boundaries are healthy. Boundaries are extremely healthy. So maybe you see, people have called it financial buckets. You have these buckets. Or you guys, if you're just using a traditional bank account and you have one account and you have a checkbook, like, welcome to
the 21st century.
Yeah, come on, people.
There's other options.
Get these bank accounts that inside the account you can separate your money into, and you can label it all different things. And there's apps like, okay, this can be spending for the house. This can be spending for our bills. And then I love this idea.
This is discretionary spending.
Yeah, this is blow your money on whatever you want, babe, and you can have
blow your money.
Maybe on your account it's like $250, and I met a lady one time. She's like, yeah, my husband gives me $10,000 every month to just spend on whatever I want. I'm like, booyah! Right? That's awesome, right? And get to work, man. Like, I'm just gonna speak for me. If I was the only one earning, I'm gonna bust my tail so that Rachel can just have a budget. She can buy whatever she stinking wants. Right?
Because
that's on
fun.
me. Just because it's fun. She comes home, I got bought this because it's fun. I was like, well, that's the ugliest decoration I've ever seen. And she's like, I love it. And she hangs it up in the bathroom. I'm like, whatever. Great. Right? And then you cover the account for and again, here, boundaries, right? I'm going to give this tool because I know this comes up often. If your spouse struggles staying in boundaries, then come to an understanding or an agreement where, okay, here's this account for spending. This card or this account right here is for taking care of all the bills. It has just that amount in there, so use it for that. And that's it.
Use it for the house. Use it for this.
There's a boundary there.
And maybe you have an account or a card for the homeschooling. And okay, that's what you get to use on the homeschooling. And here, this is your discretionary spending. This you spend on whatever it is you feel like you need to spend it on. So predetermine all those things. If this is an issue, again, we're just giving you ideas and options. If this is an issue, predetermine those amounts as much as possible, and then have savings accounts or separate accounts for each of those things, and then let your spouse do their thing instead of having to try to control every little aspect, every little issue, every penny that's spent, because ultimately that's not healthy for your marriage. It's not productive to helping the other spouse feel like they have any sort of autonomy, and to demonstrating that you have any trust in them to be able to make decisions about how they could spend money.
Now that's not to say that we shouldn't track our spending. We should know where it goes, and we should have savings accounts, and we should have investments accounts, and we should be moving in a financially solid direction for our future. But part of that budgeting or tracking is gotta allow some autonomy and some freedom and some fun, people.
Exactly. Some fun. Now, I'm going to bring up another point here that is important, and this could be true for either spouse. Sometimes, well, I mean, in situations like this, the spouse that feels like they're less in control, sometimes they want to blame that on the more controlling spouse. Well, they won't let me. They don't, I don't know, what's another word for that? They don't let me do it. Now, there's this word in psychology, it's called collusion. And what it means is that you are as much contributing to their control over you as they are contributing to their control over you. Meaning people treat you the way you allow them to treat you. Now, sometimes, especially in a marriage, we go along with things. We allow our spouse to do these things to us.
We put up with of crap and tolerate it
because we want to avoid conflict or confrontation. But we have seen over and over again, and we've heard this from other psychologists and marriage counselors, that sometimes in marriage and in any relationship, sometimes you have to reach a breaking point. Sometimes you have to have that fight. Like sometimes you have to do things that if you've tried to talk to your spouse, if you've tried to reason with them, if you've tried to whatever, and it doesn't work, sometimes you have to get to that breaking point where they take real notice that you're serious about this. You're not just, saying things just because. You're serious about it. You have to put your foot down.
You got to put your foot down. Now, this is important.
It doesn't have to be on top of their foot.
You're not putting your foot down on top of your spouse's foot. That's intentional, pain. You're just putting your foot down, and it often doesn't lead to more fighting. It actually leads to this uncomfortable silence of she means business, or he means business, and something needs to change. I would invite you to make sure you've done your homework, so to speak. You know what you're talking about. You've got a foundation.
You're not
off.
delusional.
Yeah. You're not requesting something that's actually crazy.
Unreasonable.
And when you're there, just say, you know what? I'm putting my foot down here. Something has to change.
And I said to Greg before we started this podcast, I was like, if I was in this type of situation where I felt like you were very controlling over something, especially money, I'm like, if I tried everything else, I'm going to talk, I'm going to reason, I'm going to try to articulate, I'm going to persuade.
She's going to invite me to listen to podcasts or read books. And
I'm going to do all those things. And if those still didn't work and he was still being stubborn about it, then I'd be like, fine. I'm going to go out and spend the money anyways. And if I literally don't have access to any of the cards or spending, that's a problem. But
I'm going to take your wallet.
I'm going to find a way, or I'm going to make my own stinking money, or I'm going to stop doing certain things and be like, you know what? I'll do the dishes and I'll make dinner when you pay me to do them.
Booyah!
That's the feistiness in me. And if that causes a fight in our marriage, so be it. Because guess what? Our marriage is going to be way better on the other side of that fight than it will be staying on this side, avoiding that conflict.
Yeah. Mostly because that feistiness is really sexy.
Yeah. So that's my other thought about this is yes, I get it. You feel like you're in less control because you don't earn the money. But you need to recognize your own power and how much value you bring and how much monetary value that is actually worth and how much say you should be able to have. And so you need to have those conversations with your spouse. And then if necessary, put your foot down and say, you know what, I'm going to no longer allow this. If I want or need this thing, I am deciding because I'm competent and capable, and I'm going to get them. And if you have a problem with that, then let's duke it out right here because this is a problem for me, that you have a problem with it.
So, yeah. And it's maybe hard to hear and it might be hard to do, but at some point, if you genuinely have really truly tried, and it's just not, something needs to change, then we want you to put your foot down for real. Just stand on your own 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens?
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. You're not trying to stomp on them. You're standing on your own 2 feet and saying, this is who I am, and this is how I feel, and this is what I'm going to do or not do.
And that's
awesome.
Healthy. It's maturity. It's about being an adult.
It's ownership for you.
Yes, it's ownership, and you're owning that role, and it's attractive,
exactly.
and it's empowering. You guys, we don't want to be in marriages where one of us is the little child spouse. I'm not interested in having a little child wife, and she's not interested in having a little child husband. I want to be married to someone who can stand on her own feet and like, whoa, okay.
All right.
Like, I better level up here because you're
a woman.
Something. You're a woman, right? And it's powerful and exciting and amazing. Again, there's so many dynamics to this. And this whole element of trust, which I've done other episodes on. Trust is all about character and competence. And we both need to have that. We both need to have character, and we both need to have competence. And it can't be this groveling, needy little dependence from one side or the other. And it can't be the bullying or the tyranny or the dictatorship from one or the other. And those kind of weird issues pop up around money because it's so sensitive and so intense and so emotional.
So necessary.
And yeah, it's
necessary for the growth and development of the rest of your life. So yeah, it's an obvious sore point or point of contention.
So let's hold up an ideal. What's the ideal? So you and your spouse.
Well, I think it's tough to come up with an ideal because it depends on each of the partners in the relationship and how they feel about money and what role they want to play. Mm-hmm. But I think if there was an ideal, it would be
make lots of money.
Make lots of money and have fun spending.
Yeah, woo! and that's partly true. You guys, I genuinely hope you all are living abundantly. And if you're not,
figure out how to change that.
Start working on some skill sets and start working on your earning ability. That's your greatest asset. So go there and have all the wealth you want.
If you believe that that's not possible, that's only because you're operating in your own limiting beliefs. It is completely, absolutely possible for anyone who would be listening to this.
I think another ideal is, like we mentioned before, like be willing to spend money on memories, experiences,
resources,
learning, growth, improvement, anything that makes life meaningful and enjoyable and fun. Some of you don't spend any money, and so your lives are boring, like lame. No, I'm not sorry. I'm gonna call it out. Like you're so tight with it for whatever reason. And this is to some of you friends who are millionaires, and some of you are broke. You don't spend money on fun, on living. You're gonna look back and be like, I got a sweet bank account, but I lived a lame life. Ugh, yuck. So be willing to do that, and then again, I'm holding up another ideal here. Keep talking and keep learning and keep studying and keep reading the books, going to courses until you have a similar mindset and understanding and even an agreement around money, how it's brought in and how it goes out.
But then allow your spouse, whether they earn income or not, because they still bring value to the relationship and the family, to have some autonomy in spending money.
Beautiful. Well, and make sure you bring value. There are instances where one spouse
don't bring value.
They don't bring value. They sit around doing a whole lot of nothing. And the other spouse is like, I'm not sure I want to share because you're not doing anything.
And I think in that case, thank you for bringing that up. I think in that case, that's legitimate to withhold some money. Because if they're literally not doing anything and you're just providing for them to do nothing with their life, that's not helpful to them or you either. So again, maybe you have to get to that breaking point of like, I'm cutting off your spending, right? Because you're not doing anything and I'm just paying for it. Right. So that's a whole nother side of it. There's a lot of dynamics here. There's a lot of possibilities. But again, look at it through these different angles and figure out how you can have these hard conversations and make some changes so that things work better for both of you.
Woo!
Okay.
Okay, love it. Let's actually
Please share this with someone who you think might need to hear it.
Yeah,
including your spouse if necessary.
In fact, no, do that for sure. Because the more you can get on the same page.
Exactly.
This is a key ingredient to our marriage. You guys, we have a phenomenal marriage. The key ingredient from the get-go is we were reading good books together and discussing.
Or listening to things together and then discussing it. So yes, if we had something like this that we listened to and we're like, this is a problem for us, we need to talk about it, then I would say, Greg, you need to listen to this so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic strategy that we've used throughout our marriage that works great. That sometimes leads to difficult conversations that we don't necessarily want to have, but after having them, our marriage is that much better.
Yes. And again, money can actually, instead of being a source of contention, which it is for many couples, it can actually be a really powerful source of connection.
Exactly.
Where we can connect around both. Well, in our circumstance, we connect around earning money and spending money and investing money.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a connection point for all of us. So you guys, if this has been helpful, if you liked it, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, go on iTunes and leave a review, and then share it, right? And get this out there and help us join this movement to help good people live extraordinary family lives. Love you guys. Reach upward.